which is what Paul is talking about in Hebrews 12. And what did he do it for? To fill his stomach.
You can go 40 days without food,
Yeah.
so him going without a meal, he wasn't really dying.
But isn't it funny how we could look at our needs that way?
I mean, yeah, we do that.
We certainly do, which is where the lesson is coming in. And the writer of Hebrews is saying, be careful. Just be careful. You can actually work yourself. If you cross the threshold where your birthright, in this context we're talking a spiritual birthright, is not important to you, you're capable of anything. If it's really not meaningful, what good is it being a Christian? We're capable of most anything. And we'll deceive ourselves into thinking, I got to have this or I'm going to die. And the truth is, I want that. Let's just read it. Would you go into the next chapter and read verses 34 and 35?
When Esau was 40 years old, he took as wives Judith the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a grief of mind for Isaac and Rebekah.
So in the next chapter, we're down the road now a few years, and Esau takes wives that are not part of the tribe of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, that kind of. In other words, he takes these wives that are a grief to his parents. He knew that they were going to drive his parents crazy. He didn't care. I'm hungry. I want them. Whatever the appeal was, who knows? Maybe they didn't pursue holiness. Maybe they didn't pursue God. Maybe they didn't care. Maybe he doesn't care. Esau's thrown into Hebrews 12. I see him as kind of like a what do I get out of it Christianity. What good is this birthright? What am I getting out of it? That kind of thing. A self-willed, self-centered, instant gratification. I'm hungry, I want it. I feel like doing this, I'm going to do it. Yes, but if you're going to pursue holiness and live the unique life that God has created you to live, this is getting in the way. This is a problem. Take the bricks out of the knapsack. Let it go so you can pursue peace with each other, peace with God, fulfilling our purpose, the life that God's given us, the whole thing. Basically, in closing, let me just say this, because it doesn't strike us immediately as this, but it's true. When it basically is talking about despising his birthright, we can look at it in hyper-spiritual terms, and we could, maybe we should, I don't know. But what does that kind of, if you're despising your birthright, let's take the word right off the end, and you're despising your birth, what are the implications of that? If you're expressing a hatred for the life you have, you are indirectly expressing a hatred for the one who gave it to you. Who else falls into that category?
Your parents.
Yeah. See, it's no surprise that at 40 years old, he takes some wives that are foreign wives, and it's breaking his parents' heart. And that's all we're doing here, is just kind of like throwing this thing around and saying, this is an interesting character. What do we have to learn? Well, vertically, his vertical relationship with Isaac doesn't show much promise there if he hates his birthright. And if we look even further in the vertical relationship to God, as you said, David, it shows a disdain for God himself. But the thing that doesn't immediately jump out at you, if you hate your birthright, you're really kind of saying, I hate being part of this family. If I hate my birthright, if I hate being a cerone, then that means, or I despise or disdain, I maybe shouldn't use the word hate, despise is the word that's used, disdain. It's like saying words that I don't really want to say to the rest of my family. In other words, what Mark was sharing about the table of intimacy, coming to the table together as the family of God, an intimate, loving relationship, building those relationships, eating at the King's table, where there's grace, where there's peace, where we're pursuing holiness. We get to Esau, and he said, I ain't having any of that. Just like Judas. What did Judas do? He literally got up from the table and walked out the door. You guys can be a bunch of fishermen, stinky, smelly fishermen. I've hated the last 3 years with you anyway. You're a bunch of ignoramuses. You don't get it. You don't understand the prophecies, the Messianic kingdom. You don't know how the political structure is built, and we've got to do this. You guys are just happy, playing this love one another game. Well, I've got a different idea. Esau falls into the same kind of category as a bit of a Judas in that respect. Now, I'm not picking on the guy because I really believe that the warning is given to us in chapter 12 that just says if you're not careful, you can cross effect. The more you compromise, one step here, one step there, one step here, all of a sudden you cross a threshold where nothing is sacred anymore. And it's all meaningless. And who gives a rip about my relationship with God, with each other? I don't care, quite frankly. I'm going to do what I've got to do to feed myself now because I want it. And the warning is this, that we're given in Hebrews 12. Be careful. Because when you cross the line, you may give up something that you can never get back. The beauty and the wonder of God is that His grace, it's like He keeps things in store. Things that we give away, our dignity, He restores, He gives us back. But there's some things that you can never get back. Watch out. David was able to invite Mephibosheth to the table. He was able to do that. Saul and Jonathan, he would have loved to have done that. Well, Jonathan would have showed up. Saul was trying to kill him. There's some things you can't get back. With Esau, it was this birthright. He is an example. I had you read from the end of chapter 11 that God had something more in store, that we wouldn't be apart from each other. Esau's a perfect example of looking at it. He's had a grandfather who's the father of faith. He's had a dad who, the way I read it, he was a bit of a, not exactly working at his faith, let's put it that way, Isaac. But he finally did repent and say, you know what, I got to dig my own wells here. I've got to be a person. And he gets on with it. Isaac turns himself around a bit. Esau's had these powerful examples. And what's he do? Who cares? I don't care about my heritage. I don't care about my history. All I know is I'm hungry. All I know is that babe looks hot. So I'm going to do what I want to do. And there's a warning there. Be careful. Because when you pull yourself out of the cloud, when you become a little drop that drops away from the cloud, you can't go back up again into the cloud. Remember, all a cloud is, a cloud of witnesses, is a bunch of drops. And when you drop out of that thing, because it's not worth being part of the cloud, it's not worth being a Christian, God's not worth it, nothing's worth it. There's a warning, be careful. You might give away something that you can't get back. There's a warning with Esau. You might not be able to find the table of intimacy again. Judas went out and hung himself. He repented. All of a sudden he realized what he did, but he hung himself in the process. These are just some of the warnings. And as we're working our way towards where I want to get to, Paul, or the writer of Hebrews, is just throwing these different things at us because he's got something to say that's coming up in the weeks ahead.